Fred and Pig. Fred came to me in a small cardboard box filled with wood chips. It had been in a bookstore. I had been in a bookstore in Bemidji, Minnesota, looking for a book on pickling fish. I loved to eat pickled herring and had access to a large supply of small northern pike. It was in this uncomplicated frame of mind that I met Fred. I was at the curb when a small boy came up to me holding an old detergent box. "Hey, mister," he said with the air of a con man. "You want to buy a puppy?" "Buy?" I stopped and peered into the box. There was nothing but a pile of wood shavings. "What puppy?" "He's in there, down in the wood. Dig him out." I dug around in the shavings until my fingers hit the soft fur. There was a moment's hesitation when a small growl, then a small growl, then a set of needle sharp teeth ripped into the soft tip of my finger. "He bit me." Boy nodded. "He's half lab and half something that came into the yard one night. Dad said he'd make a great watchdog." I studied the boy. He was short, with frank blue eyes and golden blonde hair. He didn't look like a con man. "Let me get this straight. You want me to buy a puppy I can't see, that bites me, and you aren't sure who the father is?" He thought a moment, then nodded. "Yep, he's a good watchdog. Look how he defends that box." Just for the record, I was going to say no, but I looked down, and a small black head appeared with two floppy ears, a black button nose, two dark brown eyes, and a little mouth that smiled at me. I know some people think dogs can't smile, but they can, and he did. I was sunk. I've always been a sucker for puppies. I can't get out of a dog pound without a dog, especially a cute one like Fred. "How much?" I asked. The truth was, it was silly to buy a puppy. You could go to any mall or shopping center parking lot and find someone trying to give them away. Add to that the fact that I was terminally broke, and it became doubly crazy. $50, the boy said, without smiling or batting an eye. "For a mutt puppy?" He looked at me, calculating. "How about $5? Done." I gave him the money and took the dog and box and wood shavings and put them in the floor of the cab of my old truck. I had just lost a friend to cancer. His name had been Fred, and I thought it would be nice to hear his name now and then. So I looked down into the box while I drove it, and I said, "Your name is Fred." At home, I took the pup out of the box and into the house, where he promptly peed on the floor and tore a hole in a couch cushion, spilled trash all over the kitchen floor, ripped open 2 bags of beans and rice in the pantry, dismembered a doll with a neighbor's daughter had left, ate the laces and tongues out of 4 pairs of shoes, but only the left shoe of each pair, absolutely destroyed a vacuum cleaner somebody foolishly had left in the same closet as the shoes, and stuck my wife's cat, Matilda, almost permanently onto the ceiling. This was in the first 20 minutes Fred was in the house, while I was looking for my wife to tell her I had brought a puppy home. Of all the dogs I've had, Fred was the closest to being actually nuclear in his capacity for destruction. None of it was done with evil intent. He was a wonderfully happy pup, an adult dog, inventive and with a great sense of humor, more of which later, but he was also amazingly persistent. Once he started a project, he simply would not stop until it was done. I think nothing illustrates this better than what came to be known as the Great Wire War. Fred grew in spite of early attempts by Matilda the cat to disconnect his head from his body. As an adult dog, he became rotund rotund and only 14 inches tall. I think he must have been a Labrador Norwegian Elkhound cross, but his shortness did not extend to his thinking or his appetite. He was as devoted to eating as he was to finding things to destroy. This fact led to the war. We lived close to the land then, with 4 gardens and a wood heated cabin in the forest where we canned and preserved our own food. This included raising a pig for ham and bacon. Because we didn't wish to become too attached to the meat supply, we supply called it we simply called it pig. This didn't work, of course, and we wound up with a nearly quarter-ton pet named Pig, who lived to be a ripe old age and died with his head in the trough eating potato peelings. Fred quickly found that he and the pig shared a basic drive to eat, and he took to hitting the pig trough in search of goodies. This often proved marvelously fruitful. I had a friend who owned a supermarket, and we obtained all his dated food for the pig. I once came home with a dozen angel food cakes, 40 pints of whipping cream, and 50 pints of strawberries. I dumped all this in the trough and watched Fred and the pig put their heads under, looking for berries and bits of cake and snorting bubbles of cream as they hunted. Soon Fred became fat and spent most of his time with Pig. He would sleep and cuddle next to Pig at night, and during the day we almost always found them together. The problem started when Pig looked over one day and saw the garden. Pigs are very smart, as smart as dogs, and many people I have met, and no doubt deduced that if old food is good, fresh food must be better. By this time, he weighed over 200 pounds and was built like a tank. And like a tank, he simply walked through the garden fence and started eating. He ate most of a row of new red potatoes, burrowing the plants up with his nose, before I caught him and herded him back. After that, no fence could hold him. He went under, over, and around whatever I tried to build and was fast wrecking the whole garden. One day I was talking to an old friend, farmer neighbor, who thought I was crazy not to just kill Pig and eat him. And I wasn't going to kill the pig, he said. If I wasn't going to kill the pig, he said, I should get an electric fence. I, of course, knew of electric fences. I had once talked my cousin into peeing on one, but they had slipped my mind. Get the kind that burns off weeds when they touch it. They're the strongest, the farmer added. It took an afternoon to buy a fence and hook it up, during which time we lost half a dozen tomato plants and another row of potatoes. The fence worked better than I had expected. I strung the wire around Pig's pen, then stood back and watched while Pig ambled close and took a snap in his ear. He never tried it again. I remember actually thinking that my troubles were over. I had forgotten Fred. I happened to be in the yard when the battle started and saw the whole thing. Fred knew nothing of electric fences. He was out tending the boundaries and, no doubt feeling a little peckish, decided to drop in on his old friend Pig for lunch. The wire caught him exactly across the top of his head and dropped him as if he'd been hit by a stone. He was on his feet at once, his hair up, his teeth bared. There was no doubt who his enemy was, the wire. He shook his head, dug his feet in, and lunged, grabbing at the thing with an iron jawed death grip. The result was spectacular. The voltage hit his wet mouth like a sledge and stiffened him like a poker. He snarled, growling deeper, and tried to hang on, but the jolt was too powerful and slammed him back and down on his rump. Any other dog would have stopped. Not Fred. He shook all over, looked at the twisted and bent wire, gave a ferocious bellow, and attacked again. This time he must have really been hammered. He slammed back and forth, and his hair stood on end until his tail looked like a black bottle brush. But he would not let go. I ran to help him, worried that the electricity would kill him. Though his eyes had rolled back, with only the white showing, he had the wire clamped in his teeth in a vice grip and was slashing his head back and forth. Just as I got there, the wire snapped, disconnecting the circuit. Fred stood there, his hair stood still on end and his chest heaving. Then he spit the wire out, growled at it, and walked away, still looking like a bottle brush, but with a great deal of dignity. In the Great Wire War, only I was a loser. Pig continued to eat well and stayed happy. I reconnected the wire to hold him in. Fred did not want to do battle again and stopped visiting Pig. But one morning I looked into the garden and saw him walking casually through the tomato patch, picking and eating only the good, rightful tomatoes. Fred had won.